Yes, I think that is usually, it's 24.
No, the agenda is perfect, right? The agenda has no mistakes.
25. All right, thank you.
Yeah, oh, your mistake only.
It must be the new man. Okay, start with you. Multiple commissioners have asked me to run the agenda. One group that has me not do that.
That is stating that you received that packet, and your signature is needed on here, and then we will give this to IT to, have them give you the appropriate, computer access that you need to have email. Are there other files, Chris, that they would need access to? Any of the drives or just email? Thank you.
Email is one. That's not been in the past. Any other documents that we do, send it.
We would send to an email. Okay, so I will get these submitted today to IT, and by the end of the week, setting up email.
James, can you make sure that when you send the letter to the proper people? All right, next up would be turn it to Treasurer Wozniak to bring forward a deputy treasurer nomination.
Yes, under the statute, the county treasurer nominates the deputy treasurer to present to the board of commissioners. The board of commissioners votes on the appointment of a deputy treasurer. Deputy treasurer receives no money and really has no functions unless the treasurer is incapacitated or unavailable. And it obviously allows the checks and so forth, the normal finance operation to continue. And I get struck by lightning or die in a plane crash and the glass to fire. And Chuck Weed was the previous treasurer, so he's well acquainted with the job. So that's your nomination. Deputy treasurer.
Second. Okay.
Anybody else?
Any discussion?
You want it?
And seeing none, Commissioner Clark,
Yes.
Commissioner Stewart,
Yeah.
and Commissioner DiBernardo.
Yes.
Okay.
Cheryl, do you think he needs to be sworn in again,
I,
like Chris at some point?
I do think he should be. And from what I
I'll let-
understand, you're gonna be doing some of the county attorneys, this afternoon.
When they get out, well, whenever they get out.
But you could probably do Chuck at any time.
If he
Right.
came to a morning meeting next week, he would be sworn in with them.
I guess
That's
they
fine.
had better be
Yep.
safe than sorry.
Gonna keep on going, just taking care of a few things here. UNH Cooperative Extension. They have a advisory board. We've had a commissioner sit on that in the past. It meets about once a month. Sometimes they have pizza. And it's important that we have that connection. I know that Peter Graves enjoyed that when he was here and was sat on that a lot. So I was just looking to see if there's anybody that would want to give up a nighttime for about an hour and a half when they have their meetings.
I've been to several of them. You know,
No one else does, I do it, and it's
usually on Zoom, so.
Or, and it can be in person too.
Yes, yeah.
So it can be either way, so,
Yeah, they're holding meetings here.
yeah, yep. Okay, I put you down. We don't need a nomination for that. We just need to have somebody covering that. Then, is it,
Sorry, you have the language. I texted it to you for the proxy.
then I would need to have that, a motion that would read, Commissioner Stewart moves to give county representatives serving on the NHA Executive Committee the power to present proxy votes for the members unable to attend meetings. The motion was seconded by Commissioner DiBernardo and accepted unanimously by votes of 3-0. A letter we sent to the New Hampshire Association of Counties DuPont Group notified them of these decisions. The reason we do this is because we have 5 votes to be given, and there's many times when not all of us can be there, and if we give our proxy to somebody that's attending, then we have our full 5 votes. And so this is just part of the process that we have to do. I think there's 3 counties that actually do this, and we're only so that's the motion that's on the table, if that's all right with you. Commissioner Clark? Yes. Commissioner Stewart?
Yes.
And Commissioner DiBernardo?
yes.
Okay. I don't need an answer to this today, but I always like to present that I do a radio show on Saturdays once a month. I used to do it every Saturday, and that after 10 years was enough. But if there's an issue with that, I just would ask that the chair pull me aside at some point around that. I try not to be political on those shows. I try to just bring information to the community about our county. Or
They're usually very fun.
Yeah.
Usually.
not all the time.
Where can I listen to this?
WKK on Saturdays, and it's from 8 to 10. I used to do it every Saturday from 9 to 12, right after your brother. Yeah, it's always fun.
What are the phone numbers for that?
357-1290.
No, the radio.
12-9.
490 AM,
Yeah. 357-1290.
That's the phone number.
not the phone number.
Oh.
The radio dial.
Oh.
I was thinking the same thing.
WKBK 1290
AM 1290.
Yeah,
Thank
sorry.
you.
or 94.1.
Yeah, 94.1, do it also.
FM,
Yeah,
On
Yeah.
FM.
yeah, sorry.
or you can go into TuneIn Radio. That's what, WK,
Be the third list.
okay.
And that's what I count on. I sit there on those days when I'm not prepared. then then I have to just say some lightning rod word, and then all of a sudden you get calls.
I do have to say, every time I've been on, I guess Chris and I have been on there.
Yeah.
Maybe a dozen times.
Yeah.
There actually is good participation, so
Yeah.
it's actually a fun thing to do.
I have to call in to calm them down, so.
And I will probably ask to have you guys on at some point, because I think it's an opportunity for us to educate the community and to be able to have the community talk to us. And that's one of the reasons I've done it over the years. The other one is that we do a podcast here. We started that this year, and the reason we did that is because we wanted to really start telling our story on a higher level and really invite people from our department heads to come in and really talk about the work they're doing. At the same time, also invite people I find intriguing in the communities throughout Cheshire County to come in and have an hour conversation about what they're doing in our communities. And I believe it's gone quite well. It's also, when we do the podcast, we also do it live, and on Facebook Live, is that correct?
Yep.
And so that we get listeners and we get questions sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes, around the topics that we're talking about, which is actually sometimes been very informative for us, but also for the individual, because they're asking us questions about, because we've done housing, we've done other conversations, and people are asking us questions. So it's just another way for us to communicate with the community. Again, unless somebody would have an issue with us educating the community, we think this is the best way to go about it. We used to want to get out to the towns. And the problem with that is you go out there, then, it takes you about a year and a half to do that. And then they have an election and you have to start all over. Here, they can go to our website, our Facebook page, our YouTube page, or our Spotify page and listen to what we're talking about. I think we've done about 10 episodes. Our goal is to continue to have that happen, so.
It's a good idea, because generally the only coverage that we get for the things that we do here. I find that the newspaper and radio stations hardly ever tend. But if you do something terribly wrong, that's the only time there's ever get we do.
That is correct. Well, sadly. And a lot of times they pick up what we're talking about, and then the next thing you know, we get a call, and then there's an article that's gonna be run, or Dan Mitchell wants to talk to us about something more so too. All right, I'm gonna keep on going on. And then there's we have an opportunity, and I need to research it a little bit more, but the quarterly meetings that go on up at the nursing home around,
QAIC.
Yes, thank you. Bob England in the past has done that. And being a doctor with a doctor's background, it's been a great thing. He's offered to continue to do that on some levels. And he could represent the commissioners as a liaison and report out to the board if you chose to do that. I don't need a decision today about that. It's something that you guys can talk about amongst yourselves. Or I would need somebody to attend those meetings. What that usually means is that it's an 8 o'clock meeting. And it usually occurs when we have a meeting up at the nursing home. Not all the time, I can promise you that. But most of the times it's that we're up at the nursing home, and our meetings would then start at 9 o'clock. And sometimes even 9:30, depending on how the meeting is. So it's just something I don't need a decision today about, but if you guys could talk amongst yourselves, and then just, Terry, if you could get back to me on how you would want to move forward, and then I could reach out to Bob.
We discussed that at a meeting at, Maple. Several weeks ago.
Yeah, okay.
If that's something I wanted to do.
I do have an interest, yes, I do
That
that.
doesn't preclude, Bob can also participate.
Correct. Either way, it's fine, but if that's something that you wanted to do, we have that availability to do it, so that's fine.
I'd like to learn more, yeah.
Okay. Then I'm gonna continue to move forward, and next item up would be public comment. I do see an individual on here that may have a comment. If not, that's fine. Otherwise, we're going to, because you're not public anymore.
I know.
You're the real deal, baby.
Oh, it was about the audio.
So I'm gonna continue to,
Yeah, just about audio, which I changed up.
okay, I'm gonna move on to the, elected officials and department head updates. Doug, do you have anything to report out?
No, I'm just listening, but your audio quality is extremely low. It's almost impossible for someone if they were to probably want to be hearing everything that's being said in the room. And the other person said the same thing on the chat.
We can hear you just fine.
Yeah, you're coming in nice and clean.
I have something for Doug.
Okay.
The Peterborough Transcript reported on July 11th, 1963, that Mrs. Melvin Clark is in Hanover staying with her sister-in-law, Mrs. Grace Barwood, while her mother, Grace Stone of Westmoreland, is a patient at the Mary Hitchcock Hospital. Mrs. Stone was allegedly shot in the jaw by Joseph A. Martell, who escaped from the House of Correction in Westmoreland Monday evening and had broken into Mrs. Stone's house. The shooting occurred when she drove up in her car and refused to give him the keys. She was driving off when he fired several shots, one of which struck her in the jaw. She also sustained other injuries when her car crashed into a tree a moment later. Mrs. Stone was returning home from visiting her daughter here, I assume in Peterborough, and bringing her grandsons, Buddy and Bob Clark, home. They had been visiting since the 4th of July. But you might, like that.
That's my great aunt, my great aunt.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's my cousin. But,
Oh, so we must be related.
yeah.
Are you like on the big family reunion?
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I've got, I mean, oh, yeah, I'm on the Carey family reunion.
Yeah, that occurred before my time as superintendent and even barely on this earth. So I don't have any comment on this.
Well, I'm not blaming you.
And now you know.
Well,
She was
that-
a tough
it's
lady, she
the
was a
rest
tough
of the
lady.
story.
That's why she
Well,
got shot. She
Yeah.
The interesting thing is since that date and even before then, that's only one of two people that have ever escaped from the jail.
Really?
The other one climbed out a roof pad through a window and in the winter.
Two of them, and one broke his back when he jumped off.
Yeah,
one of them,
and then
started
they
across.
tried to go, escape over a mountain bike, crossing the river, but it was frozen and cold, and they said, oh, that way I'm coming back.
Well, it must have been easier back then when they worked on the farm, right?
Well, it would have been, but they waited until they were back inside the locked building and jumped from the roof. And they could have just walked away from the farm.
Yeah.
No, listen, not all inmates are created equal. Tough to find good inmates.
Yeah.
There have been some walkaways, I think, different from true escapes from confinement. And there certainly have been people on the electronic monitoring program who've cut off their bracelet. And we try to charge them with the escape when that happens, but rarely have the courts actually pursued a felony escape charge in the same way that they would if somebody literally escaped, from confinement. But Jack's correct that I know of. Those are the only two escapes in the history of Cheshire County Jail.
Tell us at some point, it just gives like a thumbs up or a chat thing, it's the sound starts getting better for you.
It just got better when you spoke.
All right, well, I had that way. All right, I'm gonna continue on. Sheriff, do you have anything?
Non-public.
Non-public, yep. Is it a non-public or non-meeting?
Non-meeting.
Okay. Gonna keep on moving on. And Cheryl, Kim, you have a whole bunch of stuff.
I have a whole bunch of stuff. The first thing I have is, we received an email on December 18th that I wanted read into the record for, and Chris wanted read into the record for the commissioners, and this is our first commissioners meeting since receiving this email. It says, Kim, please forward this email to anyone involved in the decision of our future permanent chief, to whom it may concern. With Mark Creamer in our chief position, we have had a major turnaround in multiple parts of our department. Our overall culture is better, our reliability on the higher chain of command is better, and the respect as a whole is amazingly better. It is true that people lead by example, and this has been the best example to have. Since he has taken on this role, he has shown exemplary qualities of a great leader. Working under him is clear, concise, respectful, helpful, and open. He cares deeply of the department, its providers, and its patients. He has taken great pride already in making sure we are all as successful as we can be at every shift, every day, in every situation, and it's already showing positive throughout. He is a wealth of medical and managerial knowledge that everyone of every rank has and will continue to learn from. There have been zero issues across the board with his personal or professional self, even before as a straight paramedic and the deputy chief. I have never worked with a top guy that is this honest, open, appreciative, willing to help, and overall well-respected by every single person serving under him. As an original member of CCEMS and a captain, I wholeheartedly back and support Chief Mark Creamer as the permanent chief of CCEMS. This decision would benefit our department more immensely in the long run, as it has already in his short term in place. As DC Atkins and I have said multiple times, we are in a better place 3 weeks in than we have been in the last 6 months. Thank you for taking the time to read this.
And following that up, you noticed that there was an article, and you might have seen that there was an article in the Sentinel this week about opiate issues and how it's lessened, and they talked about Narcan, and top of the fold was Chief.
Front page.
Front page, top of the fold, which yesterday he hadn't seen it. I mean,
Oh.
he knows about the article, but he hadn't seen the paper. And I went out and bought, when I started, I bought the paper because I usually get it online. And I just said, he's like, I look pretty good, don't I? Yeah, and he's like, yeah, it's good. And we also have an individual that has come forward who would be interested in having the Sentinel do a story about how he, on November 24th, had a massive heart attack. His daughter started CPR. The city of Keene responded and was able to get him to the point to get him to the hospital. And then we took him from the hospital up to Lebanon, and he was clinically gone. We were able to bring him back, and he just can't thank all of us enough. He actually came to us first, and he said, the city of Keene was part of this too, because so it's exactly. The reason I bring this up is because it's exactly the model that we've said all along, is that we're here to support however that looks like. And if we have to take somebody that's in critical care from here up to Lebanon so he can have stents put in or whatever it is that happened, and he just can't, he's just like, I'm not here if you're not here. And so it was a pretty powerful statement. So you might be seeing that in the coming weeks from the Sentinel too, because he really wants to say, I want to tell my story because I think more people need to know about what's happening here. So it was just nice to see. Okay, thank you. And then you have
And
some
then I
FMLA
have,
or
believe it
non-FMLA.
or not, I have 4 non-FMLA leaves of absence. I'm not sure what's going on with the county right now, but most of them, all 4 of them are for Maplewood.
Yeah, can you just make sure that they understand the FMLAs?
So,
Non-FMLAs.
So we, in our policy, we have the ability of coming to the commissioners to request a general leave of absence if for some reason someone doesn't qualify for FMLA, or in a couple of these situations, their FMLA is exhausted for another situation, but now they're having a second medical condition that requires them to be out of work for a period of time. So the commissioners have the ability to authorize up to an 8-week leave of absence. There have been times that I've come back towards the end of that 8 weeks and asked for an extension, which could be up to 2 weeks. But that would be the extent of the time that the commissioners would or could approve somebody to be out on a non-FMLA situation. So,
FMLA covers, you
FMLA
don't have the choice to approve or not approve an FMLA because
That's
the
a
law
federal
says
program.
that everyone's.
unpaid leave. It depends on whether they have any time left on the books. It's not, we're not paying them. We would only cut them a check if they have sick, holiday, or vacation time on the books.
Yep.
Yeah. So the first one is, she's an LNA at Maplewood. Her FMLA was exhausted, I want to see, yeah, earlier this year, 2024, as a result of some surgeries. And on December 22nd, she had a medical event that required her to be taken from the facility. She did submit a return to work to us for next week, but there are some restrictions on there. We're not sure we're going to be able to accommodate. But I would just ask that you authorize up to the 8 weeks for her until we can get her back full duty. She is an LNA of more than 5 years. She's a good LNA, and we would like to have her back when she's able to come back at full duty.
So is there a motion to accept?
So
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Is there discussion? Seeing none, Commissioner Clark,
Yes.
Commissioner Stewart,
Yes.
and Commissioner DiBernard.
Yes.
The second one is also an LNA up at Maplewood. She's been with us for a very long time. She does not qualify for FMLA because she is a part-time per diem employee. She needs to have a total knee replacement starting January 24th. I'm asking for the 8 weeks. It's questionable whether or not she'll be able to return at the 8 weeks, but I may come back and look for that additional 2 weeks. She does have some earned time on the books, so there would be some pay associated with this. But again, looking to have you approve this leave of absence for her.
So in this case here, she wouldn't be able to work unless she had this operation, right?
Yeah, she's been doing this work for 20+ years and her knees are pretty shot, so.
Okay.
She's working in pain right now, but she needs to do something different.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Clark,
Yes.
Commissioner Stewart,
Yes.
and Commissioner DiBernard.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Third one is a full-time employee in our environmental services program at Maplewood. She's been with us for 6 years as a full-time employee. She had, it's the knees, I guess. She had knee surgery on December 26th. Originally told us that she would be back in 2 weeks, but we knew that probably wasn't gonna happen. But now we've got a return to work of February 23rd. So I would be looking for the 8 weeks. Her FMLA is exhausted because she had a significant surgical situation 2024. So again, looking for 8 weeks for this full-time employee to recover from knee surgery.
So they're all gonna be out at the same time, right? Is that gonna interrupt like a shift or something?
Well, these two, I'm hoping the first one is gonna be back before the second one goes out. So that, and they don't work on the same floor, so that would be. This one is laundry, so she is not impacted by the other two.
So
Okay, is there a second?
second.
Okay, any discussion? Seeing none, Commissioner Clark,
Yes.
Commissioner Stewart,
Yes.
and Commissioner DiBernard.
Yes.
Motion carries.
The last one is interesting. It's an LPN that has been with us for 10 years. She is originally from the Philippines and needs to go home to see her parents. Her mother is not doing well. She's not seen her for a long time. She's looking to be gone from April 5th, 2025 until May 24th, 2025. She would be paid with any vacation or holiday time that she has on the books, but this is not an FMLA. It's not an FMLA qualifying event. She's not going to provide care. It's not a care situation.
It's just a leave.
She's
Just a
going to
leave.
another country to, yeah, so, this would be about the 7 weeks.
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? Seeing none. Commissioner Clark?
Yes.
Commissioner Stewart?
Yes.
And Commissioner DiBernardo?
Yes.
Thank you.
Good.
I don't
Nothing more?
usually have that many.
No.
At least they're spaced out.
It's the new administration.
Okay, anything else? Cheryl, you don't have anything except for, what we're about to
Okay.
discuss next. And that is, schedule items, CMS validation. And do you want to discuss that?
Yeah, so what I want to give you a heads up about is, so CMS, which is the Center for Medicaid and Medicare Services, which we participate in both Medicaid and Medicare. Every 5 years, we have to revalidate our application. In addition to the revalidation, we're actually in our fifth year. Anytime there's what is considered change of ownership, and ownership is basically the commissioners, or Catherine, if Catherine left and we got a new nursing home administrator, there's also a requirement to update the CMS application to make it known that there's a change of ownership. So by the end of January, in addition to the revalidation being due, we also need to get the change of ownership updated, which Terry's already on there, but it will now require that we add you, Claudia, and you, Skip. And it does present sensitive information, and do have to provide your social security numbers, date of birth, country of birth, and state of birth. And so I need you to be aware that I'm sharing that information. There is something also about that I don't have any intention of having this conversation. I don't want any answers here, but where you have to answer whether or not there's been any felonies or whatnot, but we'll have that all off script. But
Oh, we didn't tell you about that?
Yeah. But I just want to let you know that in order for us to participate in the Medicare program at the nursing home, and in order to get reimbursed for Medicare, this information has to be shared. My information is out there, and Catherine and the previous commissioner. So I will connect with you after the fact to get the additional information, such as state, country, all that stuff, to be able to add to the revalidation.
Great.
And seeing as though I'm talking, can I just,
Oh, I'm gonna stop.
I just want to make sure that you all are aware of these manifests that come before you, and maybe I could have
Yeah.
waited until the manifest became on the approval or the voting on the manifest, but each week you will receive the accounts payable manifest. That's typically a given because we do a weekly AP manifest. You're seeing more than one because the holidays and we had to keep things moving. I do a review of the checks that go out the door before they go out the door. I don't do the minutia detail of reviewing all the details of the invoice, but there is my assistant, Misty Hall, and/or another staff that does that real detail review. That's more like whether or not, we hit the right GL account or year and whatnot. But you are free to ask questions about anything that you see. If you see something that is part of just educating yourself to, you're gonna see a nearly $700,000 check that goes out once a month to the Department of Health and Human Services, and that is our monthly contribution towards our liability for our residents living in nursing homes and home and community-based services that we support with Medicaid. But Terry said, why do we have so many insurance checks going out the door? And that was because this is kind of weeks and weeks, but it is in December is when I open the floodgates to say, okay, let's cut all those 2024 allocations of money that we allocated to our self-funded insurance fund. I do it some throughout the year, but I hold them back in order to hold back our borrowing. It's just one of those things that help us to not borrow money. So, but anything that you see come through these manifests, you're also gonna see a payroll manifest that come through. We pay payroll bi-weekly. Again, if you have any questions, we don't give you the detail behind the payroll, but if you do have any questions, certainly feel free. You're gonna see receipt manifest, so every monies that come into the county, you're gonna see a summary, but then other documentation behind it that shows you the money that's coming into the county that you'll sign off on. You'll see another periodic receipt and payable manual manipulation of a manifest for all our small accounts. When I say manual, it's because we have to like take QuickBook reports and create them, but that also provides the opportunity for you to see the money going in and out of all these small accounts, such as our activities fund, our contribution funds, our just all these other things outside of our general fund. But it is the requirements that the commissioners do sign off on these, at least a majority. So if somebody's out, as long as we can get 2 out of the 3. But again, if you have any questions about what you're seeing come through, let me know and we will answer. I will answer.
Thank you.
Do you want to just also, while you have the floor, taxes by towns paid? I mean, Hinsdale is the only, I mean, just want to explain that in the process of the executive committee to the delegation.
Yeah, so the taxes, our budget, we don't receive, so we're on a calendar year budget. We run our January to December. The statute is for the collection of county taxes or the payment of the towns for the county taxes is until December 17th of each year. So we basically run on our fund balance and or the money that we end up having to borrow to get us through the December 17th collection of taxes. We received all but one town on time. On the December 17th deadline, they're all getting more closer to that day. But Hinsdale did not, was it Hinsdale or here? Yeah, it was Hinsdale. Hinsdale was a day late.
They put it in the mail.
So what happened was they did put it in the mail, but it's not one of those things that the check is in the mail. The check has to be received here. So there is a statute that requires us to send out a bill assessing a 10% penalty for each day that the payment is not received, but there's also a statute that does allow them to request an abatement of that through the delegation, which always typically happens. Misty, I was out actually when this happened. Misty did reach out to them, and when they said that the check was in the mail, and Misty let them know, well, we have not received it. Wanted them to know the repercussions, did offer them the ability to come in, and they chose not to. I mean, they could have, but they could have come in with a new check. They just didn't want to. So I don't know, it will be interesting to see if this is really a great excuse for abating the interest if they actually request it.
What would be the amount of their penalty according to the statute?
I have not calculated that, but I could.
But they would have to ask for forbearance from the delegation.
Yes,
10% what they give it, right?
I can tell you.
Per day?
Yeah.
Yes,
It's driven to make sure they get it in on time.
See, by statute, we have to repay the towns at the end of the year, no matter what.
Mhm.
So
if everybody just
in
wanted
coordination
to.
with that, we need to get their money. So we can't not repay the tax anticipation. We have to repay it. So this kind of is motivator from a statutory point of view, since the statute requires we get our money. So, because it is in anticipation of the taxes that we borrow the money. So that's why those two are coordinated.
So they called, well, you called them, they said the check's in the mail, and you said, well, there's a penalty for being late, but you can have somebody drive the check down and drop it off.
And they.
And they
chose-
chose not to drive down and drop it off to avoid a 10%. How many days late were they?
Just one, it came in the next
Yeah,
day.
but still 10% of like $1
I
million.
actually am gonna look to
Correct,
see.
that's a lot of
Oh,
money, and
yeah.
it's their constituents' money that they made a choice to spend more money from other people because they didn't wanna drive down here.
I will say, not in defense of Hinsdale, for a while there, I was the interim town administrator. Their town treasurer actually individually comes into the office at a particular time to sign checks or review everything. It's a little more mechanical than it is with us. Where it says it's money. But the point is, right?
Right, I mean, even though it's a more manual situation, the fact is that person has a responsibility to taxpayers to not create an unnecessary burden. Get off the couch, go down and write out a new check.
But they know that the delegation is going to give it, so.
So, I mean, the one day penalty,
delegation has the opportunity to forgive it, but they don't have to forgive it.
No, they
Right.
don't, no.
yeah, but they typically do. The
Usually-
one day penalty is $322.17 for that.
But even
And
so, you're gonna,
who forgives it?
So,
Delegate.
what will happen is a bill will go out in the mail assessing this penalty. And they will also receive, a copy of the RSA that shows why they're getting it. And then they'll also receive a copy of the RSA that allows them the ability to go before the delegation. But their justification for requesting it should also be that there was a hardship that caused them to. So I honestly feel that they may, I don't think they got a good story to ask for.
We
And,
have
to not
waived
pay.
the penalty because of snowstorms,
Yeah.
weather delays.
Right.
Ice
that sort of
storms,
thing.
yeah.
You know, legitimate, the offices are closed because nobody can get in and they.
Right.
For 2-3 days.
Yeah.
You can't cut the check.
Yeah.
That's really beyond their control.
Yeah. Stoddard, a couple years ago, they, they paid as much as they could on the due date. They couldn't pay more, which honestly was because of a delay in getting their tax rate set. And they did advocate for an abatement, which the delegation approved. I kind of have mixed emotions on that, because if every town did that to us, we wouldn't have money to pay back ours.
Right.
Obviously, Stoddard was not anything that was going to cause us to have an issue to repay what we need to repay. But every town has the ability to go out and do their own TAN as well. So I think if we ever got into a situation where there was, where we're learning that, oh my God, there's a lot of towns that can't pay us, we'd have to be having further discussions of everybody saying, well, you're gonna need to go out. I remember one year, many, many moons ago, we had a particular town that was weighing, okay, well, how much is it gonna cost us if we had to pay the penalty to you? And again, it was a small town, but if you had a lot of them have that same
Yeah.
mentality, it was gonna put us into a bind. It doesn't happen very often. It was just, this was the first one where they basically, they made the choice of, that we'll just wait for the check to
And the other,
arrive there.
the other thing is that, I remember it this year because, Missy came to me and said that we received most of our payments on the 13th, which was a Friday. Prior to the 17th was a Tuesday. And so, I mean, they have the ability to pay ahead of time, and
Right.
a lot of them did.
Yeah.
And some of the
Yeah,
first
get
checks
that.
we received were City of Keene and Range and others, but they did it, we had it like Thursday or Friday that week prior.
So
Yeah.
the delegation, which are the state reps.
Yeah.
How is that formally presented to them to request an abatement? Is there a
Actually-
meeting? Is there an in-person meeting where they have to come before this delegation and tell why they didn't put the check in the mail a day early?
There is an RSA and they have to write a letter to the chair of the delegation asking and giving a reason why they feel that they're justified.
I remember, yeah, Stoddard didn't come.
Yeah, well.
They might have been in the audience, but they weren't asked to speak.
Yeah, I don't know
We had
that-
the letter.
Yeah, they don't have to be there.
Right.
They have to write the letter and then the March meeting, when the delegation gets together, if Hinsdale chooses to send a letter asking, it will be on the agenda.
Okay.
If they don't, we would expect a check payable to us for $300 some odd dollars.
The other dynamic that frustrates the town sometimes is the time that the DRA sets the tax rate. They can't set the tax rate until the town budget is submitted and the school budget is submitted. And I'll bet 80% of the time, the delay is at the school board level. And I know,
Well, this year Keene didn't get their tax
right,
bills out until December.
Walpole didn't either, and I think
15.
Hinsdale was late. You know, there is a legitimate structural difficulty with many school districts where they don't have the financial acumen or the people to actually get the job done. And if they don't get it in and get the tax rate set by DRA, the town can't send out the bills. And by statute, everybody's got 30 days from the time they get their tax bill to pay it. So if the school district is late and the tax bills come out 2 weeks late, then the money comes in at least 2 weeks later. And if they don't have enough cash to pay the taxes, they're in a bind. It's tough to predict, but why towns have an ability to establish either a credit.
And they
or
do
tax
collect
anticipation
twice a
note.
year. They do collect twice a year,
Yeah.
whereas we collect once.
So
the
there
actual-
are some dynamics involved.
Do you automatically bill them
Mhm.
by statute? You don't need our.
Yeah, no,
approval.
this is just an education for you
Just-
as well. And the statute that allows them to request an abatement on interest of taxes is RSA 2912. It says any town from which interest is due to the county on its county taxes, whenever assessed, may through its selectmen file with the chairman of the county convention a petition for an abatement of all or any part of such interest, and the county convention is hereby granted the power to abate all or any part thereof, if it finds that such town was unable to pay its county taxes on the date when due because of extraordinary economic conditions, difficulty in collecting taxes due to such town, or other good cause show. Whenever a special meeting of the convention is called to hear such a petition, the compensation, they'll be compensated for going to, we always do it on a regular schedule, so.
And so that is what covers a late tax rate setting and a later collection of people's obligation to pay the taxes. Because they legally can't collect it until 30 days after they get their tax bill, which could be weeks after their money is due to us.
So in the event that that scenario plays out, a town knows that it's not gonna be able to meet its obligation before the deadline. They already know they're not gonna be able to meet their obligation. But they could establish a line of credit ahead of time, knowing that it's gonna be needed in order to meet this deadline.
Well, it's a process and an expense to arrange for tax anticipation out at the town level. They could spend $4,000 or $5,000.
Okay,
Yeah,
And
it may be
they-
weighing the
and-
option between the cost of
and,
it.
yeah.
Timeline to
Yeah.
both go through that process. The, you know, to somebody. So what you never know is whether the school, the town, will be timely with submitting their budgets to the DRA. So from a statutory point of view, it's all predictable, but the variables are, you don't know.
Right,
You hope that the town meet the time yet to submit their budget to the DRA, but from year to year, you just don't know.
And I did an analysis because somebody gave me a heads up that I think maybe it was you that made a comment how the city of Keene, which I knew because I live in the city so I did an analysis of when all the towns in Cheshire County had their tax rate set last year versus this year. And I could see that towns that had their tax rate set very late last year still paid their taxes on time. And that the city, even though we hadn't gotten our bills yet, they had just last year maybe gotten their tax rate set like the first week of December, although we were almost close to the second week of December, so the majority of them, for whatever way they do it, whether they have enough from their first collection of taxes in the June, July round, and or whatever they have for either fund balance and or their rotation of borrowing money, they still have always paid their taxes. So like I said, I feel like the times that we've had situations where people could not was during some really extraordinary times, like the ice storms, where I think it was Jaffrey, that their whole system went completely down. They couldn't even take money in or get anything out. And sometimes you get towns where they've got brand spanking new people in there and nobody even knew what they were supposed to be doing. And so nothing was happening. So it's very far and few in between. So fortunately, nobody's really of any magnitude. And Keene would be our biggest.
So what are we gonna do with that $347? Go crazy.
So just another, some of these meetings, I think you'll find that we're just gonna educate you on some
Thank you.
different little things.
I appreciate that.
Not all at once, but over time. Gonna keep on moving on. Our agenda is light today. We did that on purpose. We didn't have a lot of things that we had to bring forward. But it does help us, but I do have some things I want to bring forward. I want to start off with April 16th. We've been working over the last year and a half projects to really take a look at and start developing our future leaders. And so on the 16th, we're going to have an all-day training. We're partnering with the city of Keene. And we've lined up the 3 speakers to come in and really talk about leadership on a basic level, middle management, people that want to take that next step. And our goal is work with Primex to the next step. Phase 2 would be to develop a leadership academy here that's run once a year. They currently run a leadership academy up at Primex. You can't get anybody in there. And so we will be having a department head meeting next week where we'll be talking a lot about getting those personnel that would benefit. I want to see as many people from the county go to this training as possible so we can really start developing that succession plan. We work on the succession plan all the time. We try to figure out who's and what for department heads, who's that person that could step into a department head role, who's that person that could be underneath there. I mean, it's one of the reasons that we work with Catherine on developing the assistant director. So because someday she'll be moving on and we want to have somebody that is trained, has gone through the process. And so Sabrina Priest is that person. And so we feel good about that because we've seen people leave in other counties and they go into complete panic mode because they haven't thought about this. They have to hire, Catherine's been hired to cover Sullivan because you have to legally have someone that has the credentials to lead a nursing home, a county nursing home. So they've hired her for part-time to cover up there on certain things. They have a director of nursing, they have all that others, but they don't have that leader with the credentials. And so she's covered up there and there's been other places that have occurred. We don't want to, as best we can control it, we don't want to see that happening. And I know Doug has really looked at, what the future looks like all the way up through his staffing. And so that's been a good thing too. So this is just something on April 16th. It will be a day-long opportunity. And we probably will open it up to school districts too, around the region, whether it's Reuben Duncan over in Conant or Jeremy Rathburn over at SEU in Swansea or Rob Malay at Keene or even Fall Mountain, just to see if they have people that they would want to have in that training. The more we do that as a community, the stronger our communities are gonna be if we prepare for the future. So that's just something that I want to make you aware of. It'll probably be done, I'm hearing, at the showroom, which is behind the Colonial Theater. It sits comfortably about 150, 160 people, maybe even a little bit more. And we would offer lunch during that period of time, but Primex takes care of all of that.
Why don't you tell them what Primex does?
Primex is our risk and liability insurer. And they are located out of Concord, and they do a lot of our trainings, and we use them on a regular basis. If I have an issue, I say, let's call Mike Bricker, who's their lead counsel for attorneys up there, and say, this is the situation, this is a claim, this is that, and then we get going from there. They help us in those situations. Jack is actually on the board.
Been on the board of Primex for, it's over 15 years now.
Yeah.
Primex is a statutorily authorized insurer of public entities like cities, towns, school districts, because we've got, decades ago, it was very difficult to get any commercial insurers to insure jails, nursing homes, fire departments, just because the liability is pretty significant potentially. And so these, what are called RSA 5B entities were created by statute to provide a self-insurance mechanism so the municipalities could insure themselves basically without regard to the temperance of commercial insurance.
They have the conference that we discussed a couple weeks ago in May. That I invite you to once the invitation's out again.
Yeah. Usually that's one of the things, we usually want to know the definite, once we know the dates, which I think we already do.
We do.
We can actually,
It's in Portsmouth again?
and no, it's up, no.
What are the dates?
Really?
We pull it up.
Well, we got a good rate. There was a few years we pulled away because we try to go on, I think, season. You're putting for people.
Yeah, so they, we go up there, great sessions, great opportunities for training sessions that you can go to, and it's really worthwhile. I think the bigger thing is you get an opportunity, it's sort of like the New Hampshire Association of Counties Conference. You get the opportunity to be with others in the same situation and have conversations with them and really come away with ideas and opportunities, so.
May 14th through 15th, you're not available. I think. We discussed
That's
something.
too bad.
You're busy.
Yeah,
Either way.
yeah, I think so.
And
Yeah,
registration.
and just so you know, usually if it's the 14th, that's on the.
And registration doesn't up until March. Save the date, but I'll circle back with you at commissioners meetings in March.
But what we would do is, we will start asking you if you'd like to go. If you do like to go, then we book the rooms now. Or at least they tell us. They at least tell us when we can call and book. Sometimes they'll say, too early, not open yet, but because the rooms go quickly. Right? I'm gonna keep on moving on. So I had a call from Chief Joe Sajamano, who is Southwest Fire Mutual Aid Chief. And he's like, Chris, I need to talk to you right away. Never good. And he said, where are you right now? I said, actually, I'm walking down the street to Athens to get something for lunch. Like, okay, I'll see you in a second. Literally, I walk in, I put my order in, I turn around, and Stace is right there looking at me. And he's like, you have a second? So we stepped outside, and it was actually good news. He received a letter from the governor saying that they had met all the requirements so that the $1.25 million that of ARPA monies that the governor had given to us can now go to them so that they will help with the offset the cost of the infrastructure. So that's a great thing. Because like I've told you in the past, they need to upgrade their infrastructure. They have supplies for their infrastructure on some levels, but otherwise, if they run out of those supplies, they gotta go on eBay to find the parts. So we need is about a $4.8 million, project. And we've raised about a little over just under 2.2 million of that for so far. Whilst, with that being said, part of that is a $936,000 congressional spending request from Senator Shaheen. And that keeps getting pushed out, but I received a letter from Senator Shaheen stating that we're, want to make you aware that it hasn't changed, it's still there. What I am hearing is the incoming administration is looking to get a budget done, a big budget, including a whole bunch of different things, and that would be included in there. What I am hearing are both sides of the aisle are talking because they both want to have those earmarks included in because it brings money back to their districts that otherwise would be burden on the taxpayers. So those are all good things for us because that means that that money will hopefully be coming to us once they get a budget completed, hopefully in the next 6 months to a year. We made Joe and everybody very aware that this is gonna be piecemeal how we do everything, but we can't control that. It's the same way we did it with the sheriff's dispatch, where we were able to raise 4.4 million to cover those costs. And so that the taxpayers can feel that burden. If you remember, I know I've said this a lot, but if we didn't do anything, it'd be about a 350 to 400% increase to what you currently are paying Southwest Fire Mutual Aid to upgrade it if they had to bond that. So anything we can do to lessen that cost is a good thing for everybody involved.
And if I may.
Yeah.
I want to underscore the fact that years, probably 5 years, we've extended offers to mutual aid to help them with fundraising, with grants, with this thing. And it took 2 or 3 years to get their attention strong enough to actually let us help. And it's only because of that these funds. Being the connections we have at the state and federal to find this money, that I'm absolutely sure they would be unable to get on.
What was their reluctance?
I don't know.
I want to say potentially, it may go a little hand in hand, what I just want to mention, but the ARPA funds expired as of December 31st, 2024. So anyone that had ARPA funds remaining had to commit them by the end of the year. So perhaps they were right up until the end of the year trying to decide where they wanted to allocate them. And I'm sure based on your work and your continued advocating to go towards this, that they just realized that that was the place to go. And as you said, even though the other fire mutual aid from another part of the state didn't ask for them, they probably felt that that's just the right thing to do, because that's kind of what they've done with all of them. It's like when they gave money to nursing homes, it wasn't like it was just the one nursing home that asked for it. Give it to all of them. When they gave it to something for our emergency management, they realized, okay, we can't just give it to Cheshire County, we have to offer it. So I bet that's what happened was
But we were
they
smart
had
enough to know that people wouldn't use it, so we asked for more than what they gave.
Yeah. And the reason why I brought it up is just to also let you know that we had our own ARPA allocation of a little over $14 million that we've been utilizing over the years. And if you ever want to know what they utilize it from, Davis has an entire report on that. But we have a very small amount left, a couple $100,000 that we have obligated to the.
He's over there. So
No, we gave you a lot of money. Has been obligated to the primary towns in the EMS program, that their contracts that we provided them had given them some supplemental ARPA funds right through the next 25-26 year. So I just figured I'd put it out there, and even if you could even get that in the records to reiterate the fact that we did obligate the remaining funds through contracts that we presented to the town, the primary towns that would supplemented their town contributions through the 25-26 year, so.
And that was part of a directive from the delegation to offer smoothing period
That's what it was.
for the towns that participated in the EMS thing, so that they wouldn't see a dramatic instant rise in their expenses, that it would happen over a period of 3 years. So a lot of the ARPA funds went towards that smoothing period, even though we were incurring a lot of expenses on the route. So it's the way it is, but I just think that, you know, Chris has done a great job of
They
really
would have not known.
leveraging the opportunity to get other people's money to do 100% of the church, and at this point, 50%. And by the way, the age of those infrastructures is not unique to us. It's just because of the evolution sort of things.
So, and to just go off that a little bit. So we will be traveling to also, this is a conversation we'll have to have with you too, if you'd like to go to the NACO conference. It's the legislative conference that they have in March. And can you do me a favor, Davis, just see what the dates are for that?
Yeah, it's March 1st through the 4th.
March 1st through the 4th. And our goal is to attend for two reasons. One is we are working on, and we've actually got 2 of the motions ready, but we're gonna put 3 motions forward to the body as a whole so that they can adopt it, so that their legislative aides can then work with senators and congresspeople in DC to start pushing some of this forward. And one of them is that the infrastructure, where it was easier to get money. It's never easy, but it was easier to get money for the sheriff's dispatch because there's grants that are out there that we could go after. When you talk fire service, it's not easy at all. But this is an issue that's across the country, really something that everybody's facing. And so there was a way that people could see and put forward, and I actually had an opportunity to have lunch with Senator Sheen about a month and a half ago, to be able to bring a bipartisan support to put some monies forward for infrastructure. Well, I would go after that in a heartbeat. If I could get $1 million, then we're $1 million closer. And so that's what we're going to be bringing forward. Senator Sheen said that she would be interested in learning more. And the thing I've learned about Senator Sheen is that she actually has a lot of friends on both sides of the aisle. Last year at the New Hampshire Day, she always has a Republican senator come in and speak at the New Hampshire Day conference that they have. And it's always interesting because she sits on one panel, and when the Democrats are in control, she's the chair and he's the vice chair, and vice versa. And they have the best working relationship because they know they can find common ground. And so my hope would be that she could utilize some of that and really push to get some money set aside for this 911 infrastructure bill that I think would be useful for everybody across the country. That's 1. 2, 2 is the language change in the, right now, when it comes to the ability for us to be able to bill for, when we worked on somebody at a site, an ambulance situation, when we worked on them, but we don't end up transporting them, we can't bill for that.
I know, it's ridiculous.
So, but there's a language tweak that Jack has found in there that we think we can see if they can change it, and if that was the case, it was that it would allow us to be able to work and be able to bill for that, then that's something we'd like to pursue. And then the last one is, what is the third one? I'll think of it in a second. But it's just, it was not something I was planning on talking about today, but those are something really important. But the good news too is that one of the things when we started EMS, some of the vehicles we were able to get were from different places, like the sheriff's dispatch for the intercept vehicles or for the chief's vehicles or whatever it is. Well, everybody's been drilling about the chief's Suburban that he has over here over at Fire Mutual Aid, and everybody has known that they're getting rid of it. And he's actually downsizing it, but it's a perfect vehicle for an intercept vehicle. And it's in mint condition. Our people have already looked at it, and we knew it was gonna cost us something. But the board, because of the work we've done, the board voted to give us that vehicle.
Oh, wonderful.
And so that vehicle, actually, the chief would have been here today, but he is in Concord registering the vehicle so that they can get that vehicle down there. And what will happen is we have a vehicle we bought from Swansea, it's been the Intercept, but it's been a little bit dicey at times with it's needing mechanical help. And so that would be switched over to the chief's vehicle, because you need to remember, we have two individuals that live in our community that are a chief and a deputy chief. And so when they go to a scene, to be in one of our vehicles is important. So then he would have the old Intercept, and then the deputy chief would take what he's driving now, and then they get this, and it just works out perfectly for everybody. So
Awesome.
that's great news on our part. So that was what he wanted to tell me, and so it made my day a little bit.
That is good news. I certainly appreciate their willingness to do that.
Yeah. On Thursday at 7:00 at the Harrisville Town Hall, we will be heading over there to have a discussion with them only about issues that the chief and the select board want to talk to us about, not about anything financial at this point. We will go back to them probably in a month to talk to them about that, but right now they want to focus on these issues. The chief, we know what the issues of concerns are, because the chief came to his office, the chief from Harrisville came to our chief's EMS office and talked about it. They resolved it, but I guess they didn't. So we have data like we had in Swansea that we'll be bringing forth, and an opportunity to educate and hear and have a discussion. And so, as always, I invite anyone that could attend to attend at the town hall in Swansea on Thursday at 7:00. But we'll tell our story.
Harrisville.
Yes.
Yeah. That's right next to the fire department.
In general, we've had.
Why did I say something?
He said Swansea.
Yeah.
Thank God.
I did a lot of
I heard it, but-
I'm in the wrong year, I'm in the wrong town. Right in.
Harrisville, 7:00.
I'll be there.
No, they've had legitimate, we've had great conversations with them. So, to the extent, obviously, that you can find a way to meet them.
Yes.
I just want to go back to the cars. I would encourage that at some point, consider actually purchasing newer cars for this type of work versus depending on hand-me-downs. I think this is very important that what the work that they do, reliable, they're not hand-me-down or something that's you can't get in your car, don't start, or also the transmission goes because it's 7 or 8 years old. No, and that's right. I know they've had a ton of hand-me-downs. Be kind of
John Condos wanted me to ask you to take a look at the new Silverados.
For the sheriff's department.
Yeah, they're EVs, but they're special. No, they're special made for police work, and just look at it. Just look at it, because all of the arguments that you have are legitimate, and I think that.
I'm talking about EMS.
Well, or you should look at it because they've addressed those issues. And,
All right, and keep on moving on. And thank you, Sheriff. The 29th, at this meeting, we'll have the individual from Visa Solutions coming to talk to us about the HB12 visa situation to see if there's something that we could actually work with and really get in place so that we can have RNs coming in. And as I told you, I think a few weeks ago, the RNs that we would be working for initially, because he's saying that it could be 4 to 6 months. Turnaround time would be from Canada or from Mexico. Anything outside of that could be 1 to 3 years. And he said there's certain countries we say we don't work with at this point, and there are certain countries we do work with. So those are questions that you'll have an opportunity to ask him next week. This is just the beginning stages of a conversation, of a relationship, to see if we want to continue further this discussion that much more.
Do you think there's any value to inviting somebody from Cheshire Medical Center? Thought.
Yeah, I don't care. I mean, if personally, I hate sharing any ideas I have when it comes to staffing. But I'm more than willing to see. I can talk to.
Well, not, yes,
Yeah.
it's up to you guys.
They're spending a lot.
So, and then, one of the things that was nice is that New Hampshire, we had an opportunity to meet with Steve Fortier. Steve Fortier heads up, it works for the Bureau of Economic BA Administration. And he was in the past Northern Borders rep, and now he's just doing like a bigger scope. They pushed him up a little bit, and now he oversees all types of different things. So he came in and talked to us about certain opportunities of grants out there, and if we could pursue certain things. And one thing he did tell us, and Suzanne was able to attend it online on Zoom, was that they've developed a funding calendar. And he wanted us to be aware of it. He said, because really, we're really the only county that takes advantage of grants like on the levels that we do. And that this would be, it was in partnership with the USDA, so that if there's monies out there to go after, we're gonna pursue it. And so Suzanne has, she sent to me last night some minutes that I haven't had a chance to read yet, but it's something that we're gonna look at to see if there's other avenues for different funding issues that we have coming up down the road. So those are just some of the things that we're working on. I don't want to get into it a lot today, but some of the things that this year that we're going to be working on a little bit is the HB12, like I said, the renovation of the assisted living facility starts in a few weeks. They're actually next door. The group that's going to be doing the work up there is actually next door right now, putting the 2 offices into the county attorney's office, because when the delegation last year added that victim witness position, we had to have space. So we took their huge conference room and split it in half. And that's where the space is going to be. And they are flying. They actually had in there the other day 8 guys working, because they're trying to get everything done, because they want to hit the date that they said they start up at the nursing home. The Red Barn, we're just tightening up some language on the solar. Then we'll get the solar language for the Red Barn to put the solar on there. We're going to continue to work on the growth and the development of Cheshire EMS. Supposedly, I've been told that Winchester chief is going to try to set up a meeting with me this week late or next week early, but they'll tell me when that happens. One of the bigger things that we're going to be really taking a look at and starting in February is the capital improvement plan, where we've had it and where it is today and how we need to move forward with it. And have all department heads that have facilities that they oversee, and their facility directors and any assistants come in and really start working on a plan on what that would look like, especially for any item over $10,000. And so that we can really take a look at where we stand with things. The good thing about that is that we've pretty much done a lot of this work for the most part. But as you've seen with Doug and up at the DOC, even though even though the facility, when you walk in, it looks old, it's a 24/7 building. And it's growing old as every day as we stand here. And so there are things that we need to start thinking about. So we're gonna put that in, but we're also gonna talk about our contracts. We do this every other year, talk about our contracts with propane, with rubbish, and any other contracts that we think are appropriate, to see how we can continue to coordinate those and seeing where we can get the best deal for that, like electrical, same thing, all that stuff. And continue to work with Commissioner Clark on community power. Those are some of the issues that we're looking at. We have we've been asked to participate in different side conversations, but right now, the refugee program that they've been talking about, possibly, with Rick Menard, who's come before the commissioners in the past to talk about, getting more workers into our communities. County transit, that there's a push from the Southwest Regional Planning Commission to really take a look at county transit. There's a lot of isolation in our community right now where people don't have the ability to get from one place to another for whatever reason, for whatever needs they have. Food insecurity, that's something that that we've supported in the past, pertaining to pop-up markets through the community kitchen in different communities. What they saw there is that they saw different people they had never seen before come into those. Those are things that we're going to continue to have discussion about. And if it gets involved, then I want to know more. I would bring any discussion back to you. And even if I'm in discussion, doesn't mean really anything until I bring it back to you. Another thing is veterans and veterans programming. Is there more that we can be doing, whether it's housing, whether it's medical, whatever it may be? Is there more transportation to medical care? Is there more that we can be doing for veterans? That's been something that's been talking about, of course, housing and daycare and leadership training that I talked about earlier. And then also continuing to support, how do we market this corner of the state? How do we tell our story on a bigger scale? And that's something that we partnered with the chamber, the collaborative, to really see if they can do it. So a lot of times what you'll learn is I don't want to, and I know the commissioners in the past haven't, I don't want to build something if there's something already in the community that we can tag and they're the specialists. Just doesn't make sense to us. So those are some of the things that we're looking at. If you have questions, you can always reach out to me. And I'm going to move on because we do have a non-meeting. Non-meeting is held when we have union matters to discuss. It's not a non-public, or when we want to hear from our lawyer, or when we've heard from a lawyer and I want to bring you something forward, and we also have a non-public in there too. So, next thing up would be, is there any old business? Is there any new business? All right, consent agenda item, vote to accept the weekly manifest and minutes of December 18, 2024 as stated.
Yeah, I move.
Is there a second? Second. Any discussion changes? Being none, Commissioner Clark,
Yes.
Commissioner Stewart,
Yes.
and Commissioner DiBernardo.
Yes.
Okay, moving on, is there any general discussion for commissioners? An opportunity where if there's something that you want to bring forward. Otherwise, we've talked about all kinds of things. The biggest issue that we used to discuss is how the state, when they vote on the budget and they say balanced budget, really means that they're pushing down or paying to us, and we need to come up with a plan. And we've actually had really great success. We've been able to put together language, do editorials, and really get on the radio and get on wherever, to the point where, I think I've told the story before, but I'm going to say it again because you may not have heard it, but Senator Riccardi, I can't say her name wrong, but she was prior to when she was running for Senate, she was a selectman in Bedford, And, oh, did we lose it?
No, I'm just printing out something.
Okay.
You just say, my screen for a minute.
When she was, she heard about she was on a call because we did a call with about 85 to 100 legislators and senators on a call talking about how you have broke the broken promises of the state of New Hampshire. And we went through a list. We had educational reps there. We had me as the county rep, and then we had Margaret Burns from New Hampshire Municipal Association there. And we talked about how they had, they say this and then they take it away. You're paying 22% of a pension plan or 25% of a pension plan, and then you go down to zero. And that was over almost a $2 million hit to the city of Keene alone. Because you have to factor in the county and the educational loss of those pension plans too, funding. And so it really worked, and she heard about that, about the room and meals tax. And her first bill that she got passed was an increase to the room and meals tax. And she says she learned it from our conversation. She was actually on my radio show and talked about how she learned about this and that it was important for her to move this forward. So we can have a voice out there when we have to, but that's what those general discussions are about. So, all right, I'm gonna move on, unless you have any questions. To non-meeting, I would move to go into a non-meeting, and we're gonna have to wait a second because he's gonna have to lock that down to discuss union matters. And then right after that, we're gonna do a non-public on the other issue. So,
Do you want me on that non-public?
yes, yeah, I would ask for your historical. If that's all right with you.
So, of course it is.
Yeah.
Of course. So we need a motion there?
Yeah, but I don't want to,
We'll wait until this is over.
wait, we'll just wait until Davis comes back, because he'll lock out here.
Two.
And we can take a break for a second.
I have to go up to Brattleboro after this.
Yeah,
I have to go to the food co-op. And my girlfriend lives right around the corner from it. I'm bringing her to my house for the next couple of days, because even though I've been in the house for a long time, there are boxes that are not unpacked. So we're gonna have an adventure and see what's in there while I have a visit. That's
you
good.
guys to me that you told me
Wait
about.
on you.
I'm always slacking.
I said, I'm waiting on you.
Not kidding.
Bob, do we adjourn or we just,
Why don't we wait until now,
skip?
Skip comes back, and then we can. We're just gonna go into a non,
You've got a majority of.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
But then
so
I'm
moved.
adjourning.
all right.
Second,
Commissioner Clark.
Yes.
second,
All right, and so we're going into a non-meeting. Second,
second.
and so we're,
You just said that again.
all right, now we have to say it. So
You
we're
just have to say the.
non-public. We're going to RSA, we're going to a non-public for, under RSA 91-3:, -8:32 matters which is discussed in public would likely adverse, affect adversely the reputation of any person.
Yes.
Yes, a motion to go into non-public.
Yes.
Second.
Second, Commissioner Clark.
Yes.
Commissioner Stewart.
Yes.
Commissioner
Yes.
Bernardo. Thank you.
So, we're now out of non-public. A motion was made and a decision was made, but by a 2/3 vote of the commissioners, to seal the minutes in the future. Because of what was the
To
language?
not frustrate.
To not frustrate the intent of carrying out.
Yes, so,
Second.
Yeah.
Yes. It's a.
okay, now we can move to adjourn.
Did
Do we
you
have
do
something
have we done all the,
We did the manifest.
I missed
consent
that, it's
agenda,
probably all in
ordinance.
another world.
That's a lot.
Consent
Oh,
agenda?
Yeah,
How
yeah,
come?
Chris did it.
Oh, okay, that must have been what's. So I
All
do
right.
think that's it.
Yeah, the motion to adjourn.
To adjourn, yeah.
Second.
Aye.
Aye.
I.
Dan, aye.
You having fun?
They are.